Today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, after a questionable debate performance last night on KET, several campaign missteps, bad organization, and lingering questions, we're left to ask what was/is the overall campaign plan for Cameron, and is there time to change course? One thing is clear: McConnell has been oddly quiet and his money absent, even though his people are, in my opinion, poorly running the show for Cameron. Then finally, following up on yesterday's episode, the Democrats have gone full force on defending Beshear's drunken Zoom call, even though Beshear himself, as of the time I'm recording this, has been silent on the incident. We'll have all that and more today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider. And as always, if you want to listen to that last segment of following up on yesterday's episode regarding the Democrats' response to the Beshear drunk video, you'll have to follow me on a podcasting platform. That last segment is saved specifically for the podcast listeners. And if you want to listen to that, you need to go to iHeart, Google, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, or any other major podcasting platform, and go ahead and take a listen to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Just simply search Andrew Cooperrider and you should be able to find it. But please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. To all those listening to the podcast format, please make sure you leave a 5-star review if you can on the platform you're listening to. It helps the show out, helps us grow. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show as well on all those platforms. Now, without further ado, let's dig into it. We are 2 weeks out from the election. 2 weeks. As of today, 2 weeks out, and I want to get some statements and questions on the record for the Cameron campaign. After an election, people love to pontificate, mumble and muddle around, wondering how someone lost or how something happened. And I'm not saying Cameron is definitely going to lose either. I'm not saying for sure I know that. I also want to be clear, and I know I've said this time and time again, but it bears repeating. You'd be hard-pressed to find a person who wants Beshear to lose as much as I do. My desire to talk about the mistakes Cameron is making doesn't come from a partisan hackery or support for Beshear or something like that. It comes from the fact that I want Beshear to lose. And I also don't do this show just to say the same thing everyone else does. You're not going to hear party line talking points on from me. You're not going to hear that. If you want to hear that, you can go to other podcasts, other shows on both sides. You can find many places where they will toe that line. No, I'm going to call the balls and strikes as I see them from a liberty, constitutional, Republican mindset, my viewpoints. And I started this podcast because I felt these things needed to be said, and people are just not saying them. Because these people are more worried about political careers or fitting in than they are about saying what needs to be said if we want to see Kentucky become a more conservative and liberty-filled state. So with that in mind, let's say what needs to be said. Last night's KET debate was a tire fire all around. Cameron has been getting progressively better with each debate, coming up with retorts to Beshear's swarmy and awful talking points that he says with complete and utter psycho he's a psychopath. But then last night happened. Now understand, both Beshear and Cameron didn't do well in my opinions. They both dodged a lot of questions. But here's the thing with the KET debates. Specifically, that is different than other debates. They are moderated by Renee Shaw. And Renee is not simply just the moderator. You are, to a degree, debating her. And if you don't come prepared with more than feel-good talking points, she will roast you. I've learned this myself firsthand. During the treasurer debates, I was a little taken aback at first at her aggressiveness she had off the bat. I opened up, and then she turned to my opponent and asked him just a layup question on me that, well, can a treasurer even do what Andrew's talking about? And then my opponent responded, and then she, of course, didn't come back to me and give me a chance to respond back. I found that extremely irritating. So the next time around, she asked, somehow CRT came up. I don't know if she asked about it or something like that. And I spoke about it. Then she said, well, we all know CRT isn't happening in Kentucky. Well, I'm the only one at the debate. I immediately corrected her and gave her an actual example of CRT that is happening in Kentucky, and a policy and a situation where it's happening. She didn't argue with me on that because I gave her the facts. From that point on, she didn't really argue any of my points because she realized, oh, this guy isn't just giving me talking points. He's actually knows what he's talking about. He has facts. And if I just spout off something like CRT isn't happening in Kentucky, something I've been able to get away with and never challenged on, well, if I don't have good facts on that, he may be able to call me out on it. I need to be more careful with Andrew Cooperrider. It actually turned into a pretty good debate in my favor. So during debates like this, it's often that a candidate doesn't want to answer the question, but Renee is going to hold your feet to the fire and make you answer. This happened a lot last night to both Beshear and Cameron, but Beshear, of course, as I said, he's just more swarmy and psychopathic. He's better at doing it. He's better at not answering the question and saying it in such a way that makes the voters just kind of, okay, because he's got the Mr. Rogers kind of attitude. And it's, to me, I find it off-putting and dishonest, but some voters are bought in by that ridiculousness. Now, as I mentioned last week, while looking at the first debate, Cameron, I mentioned this last week while we did that analysis, on the first debates, a two-part episodes there. And while I was looking at that debate, you can go back and listen to that. I mentioned that Cameron oddly dodging on school vouchers was odd. Well, that happened last night, and let's listen to the exchange here.
There's General Cameron.
Look, I support what I've always said is I support catching up our kids. I'm trying to, my plan is
one of those option school vouchers or scholarship tax credits.
About making sure that we catch the kids up from the shutdown. We've seen Andy Beshear's education plan, and it's a plan that shut down our schools for nearly 2 years.
But you would be for school vouchers?
No, I would support primarily our public school system. Look, we need to make sure that we expand opportunity and choice.
That's three times you've asked the question.
We need to make sure at the same time, look, more than 90% of our kids are in public schools. Look, parents at home, they want to make sure that their kids are caught up. This governor shut your schools down for nearly 2 years.
We deserve a governor that will answer the question,
Governor
that
Beshear.
will look in a camera and answer the question. I oppose vouchers 100%. They steal money from our public schools and send them to our private schools. The reason he won't answer is he supports vouchers. He has time and time again, but what's concerning is he won't be honest with you and answer a direct question and look in the camera. You deserve a governor that'll do that, whether the answer is popular.
Why will you not answer the question directly, General Cameron?
Look, I agree that we need to expand opportunity and choice, but this program and policy that I've put forth is about our public school system.
Are you for vouchers?
Wait a minute. You were for shutting our schools down for 2 years.
Are you for vouchers?
Did you shut our schools down for 2 years? Do we have learning loss because of those shutdowns? Andy Beshear shuts you down for 2 years. Your kids are behind on learning in reading, science, and math, those indicators for success. A parent at home watching right now wants to make sure that their kids are ready to go to college. Under this governor,
Renee,
we don't have that.
I just don't understand why he won't say it. He said it on the campaign trail. He said it in other debates. He's looked at a camera. But he won't be honest enough with your viewers to say a view that we all know he has. It's not hard to be honest, look in a camera, and say how you feel about vouchers.
So, General Cameron, if you're sent a bill, if you are elected governor, that has scholarship tax credits or school vouchers, would you sign that measure into law?
Look, I would sign that, but I want to make sure that people know that my plan, the Cameron catch-up plan, is about our public schools. I cannot say that and stress that enough. I want to make sure that our teachers are in a position to build connections with our students. I want to make sure that the classroom is an environment conducive enough for those students to understand and be free from any disruptions. And I want to make sure at the end of the day that we remove the bureaucracy that exists in the classroom as well.
So here's a scenario.
Taking tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars out of public education and sending them to fancy private schools. You can't have a public school plan if it includes vouchers. You can't take the funding of our public schools and expect them to succeed.
The governor needs to be enrolled in the Cameron catch-up plan because clearly the public education plan that I've put forth said absolutely nothing about vouchers.
That was that's rough and unexplainable. I don't understand this. I don't. And it's not just me saying it. I've had no less than probably 10 conversations over the last 12 hours with different people calling to ask me, what was that? Why won't he say he's for vouchers? has priorly said he's for vouchers. He's for school choice. He said that. We know that. Almost every Republican is. What was that? And why wouldn't he answer that? Vouchers and school choice poll overall as winning issues. It's like one of Republicans' few winning issues in urban areas. In the more liberal areas, this is where Republicans can get a leg up, is on school choice. Areas like Louisville and Lexington, specifically Louisville, where the public schools are an absolute trash wasteland disaster zone, a place where Cameron can gain support on this issue. Now, as I've stated, I understand that rural areas have different concerns, and they maybe really are worried about school choice. And maybe it's that Cameron has painted himself into a corner after the first or second time you get asked, well, are you for school vouchers or not? For some reason, you're trying to avoid it. And it's like, well, I don't want to give in. But now for some reason, Cameron won't just say he's for vouchers. He wouldn't say that to begin with. Now you're painting yourself in a corner, and you're getting painted in that corner. And I don't know why. I mean, here, let me give you a simple response you could have given even after being asked a few times. Renee, the average Kentucky public school has about 55% of its kids at reading proficiency in the 8th grade. That is an F. That is a failing grade. Our schools are failing. And here's what I know. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result is stupidity. And our kids deserve more than stupidity. Just throwing more money at this problem isn't fixing it. And Beshear knows that. He nor any other education expert has ever been able to give anyone a number, an exact number on what they need dollar amount wise to finally get these kids to even an average of maybe 75% reading proficiency. If they had an actual dollar amount, whether it's per student or just a total amount, I wouldn't be talking about changing the system. I'd be talking about how do we hit that dollar amount? How do we get kids to succeed? I support teachers and I support students. What I don't support is a failing system. And does a new system involve vouchers or not? I don't know. I'm not like Andy. I'm not going to be a tyrant in the room saying it's my way or the highway. This is straight up all that I believe in, and this is it, and this is how we're going to do it, and there's no other options on the table. I don't operate that way. Andy does. What I do know is that the school system and the state needs the flexibility to have the options. And as a governor, I want to provide that flexibility so our kids can finally succeed. Andy's plan is to shove more of our hard-earned money into a failing system. My plan involves choice and options in order to change this failing system into one that can succeed for both students and teachers. Boom. There you go. There's a response. By the way, Cameron campaign, if you want me to help with the next debate prep, give me a call. I'm actually pretty good at this. We knew this was coming too in the last debate. Beshear brought this up. Well, he won't commit to this. He brought it up. We knew it was coming. But why won't Cameron just say he's for vouchers or say something like this? Or just say he's for anything at all. He won't say he's for anything specifically at all or hardly at all. He's got a few things, but hardly at all. So why is he so afraid to commit to anything? Well, we'll be going over that and the reasons why after this short break. Listen up, my fellow business owners. You need to get your cybersecurity and IT support under control. Reach out to the folks at Amston today. Call 859-300-0087 or visit amston.com. It is no secret that cyber attacks have become a constant threat, and you need to make sure that your organization is protected. Amston has over 30 years of experience working with businesses and governments alike. Call 859-300-0087 or visit AmstonAMPSTUN.com today. 859 Print has local service and low prices. I personally have done tons of business with them, and I can tell you whether it is getting things printed off, sending direct mail, making business cards, buying TV ad time, digital marketing, they can do it all. And as a special for listeners of this show, they're offering 10% off any and all print services using code RIDER2024. That is code RIDER 2024 for 10% off. Check out 859 Print. You'll be glad you did. Why is the Cameron campaign so dead set on instructing Cameron to try and say as little about his ideas, his policies, what he'll do in office, as little as possible? I mean, right now, if I was to ask even people who pay heavy attention to politics, remember, we're 2 weeks out from the campaign. So, or from the election day. So if I ask people who paid even heavy attention, what is Cameron's policies? What will he do? They'll say, well, he's got his catch-up plan, which involves an 11% pay raise initially for teachers and then a tutoring program, a work requirement in order to receive, taxpayer-funded health care through the Medicaid system. And I guess, some policies about if a bill passed that involved abortion exemptions, he would sign it. I mean, what about economic policies? What about spending? What about budgets, pensions, infrastructure, justice system, juvenile justice system, accounting for health and family services, regulation and red tape reform? I mean, changes like that need to be made. What is the plan? And while this is extremely frustrating and important to people like me, and hopefully people like you, it doesn't appear or coincide with what the campaign plan has been up to this point, which is to try and offend as little people as possible, try to be as non-offensive as possible, try to get them just to focus on our opponent and how awful he is and say nothing that offends anyone during the campaign. This is why he won't commit on vouchers. This is why he's flip-flopped on abortion. That's why he has no real policy plans outside of 3 or 4 items I listed. It's not by accident. It's by design. Because this is how old school McConnell campaigns operate. But here's the problem. Cameron isn't McConnell. Cameron isn't an incumbent. Cameron isn't down ticket either. Turnout is low in off-year elections. Cameron, it's not about convincing the people that already show up to the polls to vote for Cameron. It's about convincing people to show up in the first place. Cameron doesn't have a machine, and weirdly, too, Cameron doesn't have the McConnell money either. Yet his campaign is being run by McConnell people. People like McConnell's chief of staff, Scott Jennings, others. Obviously, these are the worst kind of political operatives. The kind that view it as a career and a game. It's team red shirt versus team blue shirt. And policy or doing good doesn't matter. The only thing that does is power and how close you can get to it. They adopt conservative talking points simply to win, but are willing to cast them to the side the moment the moment they become difficult at all to fulfill. These are how these people operate. These kinds of people try to not offend as much as possible, present no policy, and use what appears to be extremely popular to their advantage while letting their own horrible judgment cloud their ability to even leverage that popular stuff to their advantage. Here's an example. Cameron was endorsed by Trump. Why hasn't Trump done an event with Cameron? Or better yet, why does Cameron say things like this? Why is this so hard for him? I mean, Trump's extremely popular in Kentucky, but yet that doesn't stop weird exchanges like this. This is an exchange from last night where Renee is going to ask Cameron about Donald Trump. Let's take a listen.
Cameron, you've said that Beshear will not speak out against the far left wing of his party, and that you've frequently drawn connections between Beshear and President Biden. A question from a viewer tonight from Louisville. You've accepted and touted the endorsement of former President Donald Trump. Senator McConnell stated that January 6th, the mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people. Do you agree with Mitch McConnell that the president was responsible for the attack on January 6th? Why or why not?
Look, I'm proud to be endorsed by President Trump. In fact, President Trump is such a...
he was responsible for the January 6th insurrection?
I'm proud to be endorsed by President Trump. And President Trump is such a big deal in this race that Andy Beshear ran a campaign ad nearly 2 weeks ago trying to tout that there was some relationship between him and Donald Trump. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I think most people at home right now agree that things were better in terms of the money in your pocket than what you have. You know, in D.C., they call it Bidenomics. The rest of us just call it record high 40-year inflation.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If your goal is to not say is to say that Donald Trump is not weigh in on the January 6th thing, well, then that's a fantastic answer. But I just don't understand why Cameron, that is a goal at all. I don't understand why Cameron doesn't just say, no, I don't think Donald Trump is responsible. Donald Trump is extremely popular in Kentucky. Like, what is going on here? The vast majority of Kentuckians either don't care about January 6th, think it's overblown, or they think Donald Trump isn't to blame for it. Like saying, no, I don't think he is responsible isn't even a risky response. Just like bringing Donald Trump into campaign with you isn't a risky thing to do, but yet they continue to do this. And why? Because all these McConnellites running the campaign do think that Trump is responsible. So because they fall into that small category of smarmy, elitist political operatives with an R next to their name that hate Donald Trump, then they think it's controversial, and it's not. This is what happens when you have people run your campaign that have never been a real person or aren't in touch with real people and don't work on the ground. If you're going to run a statewide Kentucky campaign, maybe get people who know Kentucky and are part of that infrastructure to be in the room at least. This is becoming a real problem. But they think Donald Trump is controversial. It's the same as vouchers. They think it's controversial, and it's really not. In their quest to offend no one, they are saying nothing. And when you say nothing in a race that's about turnout, you don't get turnout. It's a big problem. And I hope either I'm wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong. Like I said, I'm not saying Cameron's going to lose. I'm saying it's probably, if it's probably going to be close, I guess. I would say it should be close. But I hope I'm wrong. Or I hope Cameron fixes it. But I don't think I'm wrong. There's too many people out here like me scratching their head about this campaign, about how it's being run, and about what they're saying and doing, and it doesn't make sense to like any of us. And for this to not be felt down the line, for this not to be felt by voters, I don't see that happening. I mean, the way he's campaigning is how you would expect someone to campaign if they're really up in the polls. But it doesn't appear that way. It appears that it's at least close. And Cameron is certainly not massively up unless they're seeing something we're not and completely unaware of that's indicating to them that they're definitely going to win. And then I guess this behavior is, of course, excused. And once again, I'm wrong. But what's curious, though, is while this all is going on, the campaign is being messaged like a McConnell campaign, and Cameron has McConnell staffers running his campaign with McConnell campaign techniques. And, of course, Cameron used to work for McConnell. I wonder where the McConnell money is, which leads me to a few points of speculation. Either A, McConnell knows Cameron is not doing well and most likely won't win, so he has hedged his bets and made a deal with Beshear so that if he steps down while Beshear is in office, Beshear will replace him with somebody they will have agreed on. So McConnell's kind of playing both sides and doesn't want to upset by Beshear by really dropping in some money. Or the other option is that McConnell has fallen off and people are not viewing him the same as they used to. If people are saying McConnell is a has-been and he can't command and direct as much money as he used to, then that could explain a lack of funding from his side. Because while Cameron has McConnell people running his campaign, it's Rand Paul donors and PACs and mega donors that have given Cameron more monetary resources than McConnell has. I'd say, well, Cameron has just upset McConnell, so he isn't giving them the money. Maybe that's an option, but why would, once again, McConnell's chief of staff still be working on the campaign? And if McConnell doesn't like you anymore, well, if I was Cameron, I would start at least a whisper campaign through the ranks that McConnell doesn't like me, because then it would draw in more support from Liberty Crowd and people who have been turned off due to the McConnell connections. You're not going to lose anything. You're going to gain something and more support in the general support he's lost due to flip-flopping him and the amount of McConnell staffers he's brought in. Or perhaps McConnell just views it as a complete loss because, well, it may be. I don't know. Maybe they're seeing something else that's really bad and doesn't want to waste money. Or perhaps McConnell is dumping it all in last minute. That is McConnell's type of way. Maybe they're really reserving that money. They're dumping it in here last minute, and we're going to see it. I just don't know. Here's what I know. If Cameron wants to win, he's got to change course here. You know, Thomas Massey said, I don't know if it's just a political event or conversation or something, but he said, Republicans do a horrible job at defending our good ideas while not calling out and pointing out effectively how bad the Democrats' ideas are. And it's incredibly true. Standing on standard Republican principle and platform, I mean, there's a reason people are changing party and running away from people in the Democrat Party to the Republican Party here in Kentucky. And it's because of things like school choice and Trump. And it doesn't make a lot of sense why you're running away from them. Have a campaign event with Trump and start really getting after Beshear and stop being afraid of offending people and start inspiring people. Well, y'all, that's what we have time for. For those of you listening on the video format on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, for those of you listening there, if you want to catch this last story, you got to head on over to the podcast form, which you can hear on, once again, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, Google Podcasts, really anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And if you can't find it where you listen to podcasts, shoot me an email at info@theandrewshow.com, info@theandrewshow.com, and I'll make sure I get it up to where you want to listen to it at. Otherwise, you all have a great rest of your day. But those of you listening in podcast format, stay with me because the Democrats have gone full denial on the Beshear drunk video. We'll have more after this short break.